You're copying out that this is your passion, but it's not.
Don't I seem passionate about this? I tell great stories. I bring great people to light.
But so what? You're a cunt, Brian, not me.
Explain.
You're weak, and you want these people to like you. If these little cunts think that you're something now, I see you 1,000 times more.
Because you love me, because you care.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you can be. They think you're a big fucking deal. I know you're not. And down deep inside, Brian, you know that I'm closer to being right than they are.
My saga with the $50 billion man continues. It's almost 2 years since Dan Peña walked into my studio and altered my life, and now my clothing and my dress and perhaps the business of London Real forever. And for that, I am grateful. Dan, well, they just don't make them like that anymore. And I always feel that he's a dying breed, and we need to soak up as much of his wisdom as possible before he moves on, because I just don't think future generations are going to be anything like Dan Peña, and I think we need him to a certain extent in our life, even though I equally love and hate Mr. Dan Peña. We get into it here. We go deep in this episode. At one point, we're yelling at each other. He calls me some choice names, and I ask, Dan, it's because you love me. And I believe he admitted that he does. This is the classic father-son narrative going back to biblical times. I think the son is trying to kill the father or prove himself to the father. I'm not quite sure what's going on. And yet the father needs the son in so many ways. And Dan needs us, whether he wants to admit it or not, for lots of reasons. And that's okay. And we're going to continue this dance until one of us dies. And I love it. And I hope you're enjoying watching this part of my journey. You know, the crazy thing about London Real is it's my life, and it's being acted out in real time in front of you. So these people really affect me in a big way. My guests changed the course of my life, and not in little ways. And Dan is one of those people, very much so. And we get raw here, you know, and we show it to you all. So there's no editing when people call me four-letter words, as Dan does much on this show. So again, always bringing it to you real. I hope you enjoy it. And you know, they just don't make them like the $50 billion man anymore. A lot of people have asked, Brian, you know, what is London Real really about? Well, you know, it's a lot more than just me having conversations with amazing, fabulous individuals from around the world. There's actually an academy of over 1,000 members around the world that meet up in cities in every single country and push themselves to be better versions of themselves. We have summit meetings where hundreds of us gather. We get physical. We go out into the world. We form lifelong relationships because we're trying to get the best out of ourselves. It's really about being the best you, and I think it takes more than just watching videos to do that. And here's a little bit more about what we do.
The entrepreneurial journey, it can be a lonely road. I push myself in so many areas, but you know, you can't do it all yourself.
The thing about the academy is, it's like, look, you have the ideas, you have the ability, you have the skill, and you have the sort of ambition for yourself. But when you have a group of people pulling you forward, it's so important.
Accountability is what's missing from most of the programs or any gurus or any internet mentor that I had before.
I wanted to get some accountability. I wanted to make myself accountable to a group, to you.
The reason we started the Academy is because I felt like we were doing these amazing talks, like we'd have a Peter Sage episode or a Dan Peña episode or a Kala or someone, and you get super inspired, and then YouTube stops and then you go back to your life and you don't make any changes. And it was just like, what? It felt like, what are we doing? If you're designing your life right, the good times are now. And in a few years, you'll look back and say, wow, that was amazing.
The thing about the Academy is it has so many different sort of layers to it. I think your web seminars are awesome. The way you broke it down and the style of your teaching is pretty awesome.
I like the feed. When I have to motivate myself, I kind of look at others struggling and getting over those struggles. So I actually follow daily the feed.
Best feature would be the sort of Facebook aspect of it, the social media aspect of it, as in creating a profile with your goals, your dreams.
Everyone's on the same vibe, and we may be at different stages in our journeys, but everyone's on the same page at the end of the day. Everyone's really trying to push themselves and building the best you. It really resonates with me.
And the fact that I'm committing a small amount of money and the fact that I'm actually trying to interact with those people means that I'm invested and means that I will keep it for the long run.
You have to be serious about yourself and what you want to achieve. And if you're serious about yourself, this is going to be such a fantastic platform.
London Real, sponsored by Bulletproof. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dan Peña, who is an American-born businessman, entrepreneur, mentor, and creator of the Quantum Leap Advantage, QLA, methodology used to turn $850 into $450 million at the oil company Great Western Resources. You call yourself the $50 billion man because over the past 20 years, your mentoring programs have created over $50 billion in equity and value for your students. Some say more. You and I have a storied history together. We first met here in our studios 2 years ago. Followed by that, I attended your Castle seminar. We had our infamous event at the Ritz Hotel in London. I quoted you in my TED Talk. My daughter spoke at your 70th birthday party last year at Guthrie Castle in Scotland. Your episodes on London Real have been watched nearly 500,000 times. Dan Peña, welcome back to London Real.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me again.
It's great to be back here. You turned 70 last year. I was at your party. My daughter spoke. It was a tremendous gala affair. Your wife, Sally, did an amazing job. You know, most men might be planning their retirement in their 70th year, but from what I can see, it looks like you're ramping things up. And I was wondering why you think that way, and what does this next year look like for you?
Yeah, most of my contemporaries have toned their lives down, so to speak. And the last 3 or 4 years, I've done just the opposite. I didn't earmark 70 as to be a takeoff of anything special, other than in my 60s, I wanted to continue towards, from my middle to my late 60s, do more and more and be more and more, because as you've heard me say many times, QLA and Dan Peña are synonymous with being all that we can be. And 70 is just a year. I don't feel 70. I don't believe I look 70. I certainly don't act 70. So it should not be anything other than another birthday. But I am ramping things up, but I have been ramping things up basically since I first met you, or actually before we first met almost 2 years ago, and we sat and for our first interview. And because I'm trying to continue to push the edges of the envelope. One of the new things in the seminar, actually since you've been there, we've added, is that for the kids, and I call you all kids because you're I'm either old enough to be your father or your grandfather. The kids have to, in their weekly reports, which they have to register now daily, instead of weekly reports where they fill out the last day or two, it's daily reports that then they send me once a week. But you have to do something every day that scares you. And that's a takeoff from Helen Keller, who said, or not said, she was deaf, dumb, everything. She couldn't do anything. And she said every day she did something to scare herself. Well, if you and I had all those afflictions, just getting out of bed would be scary enough. And so I decided that one of the differentiations between the people that got the most out of the week-long seminar and the year-long free mentoring from me is people that really press themselves hard. So I translated that into they've got to do something and list it, what they did to scare themselves every single day.
What are some of those things that they do?
No.
If you can talk about them.
We've got, a couple of them we can't talk about, but I mean, most we can talk about. We had a guy that went and jumped off, and this wasn't a daily thing, because it took him a week to do this. He jumped the highest bungee jump in the world. I recently bungee jumped a couple years ago, but I didn't jump off the highest. He sought out the highest, okay? Another guy sought out jumping out of a plane, and a lot of people jumped out of a plane. I have myself, without a parachute, and having a guy skydive to catch him. No chute, no backup chute, no safety chute. Well, I'd think twice about that. Although I've done it, I think twice. When I was younger, I think twice that, let's say Brian Rose is going to catch me. I'm not so sure that would happen. So we have things like that. We also have things that, just for a person that has never made a cold call, okay, make 100 cold calls in a day. A cold call is defined by not ringing it and getting an answering machine, but getting through to somebody, having to get by gatekeepers, secretaries. Others are making financial presentations. And it goes from there. It goes all over the board. But you have to do it every day, something. So in a month, you're doing it 30 days. And we don't give off weekends, in case you don't recall. I mean, that's 30 times. So by the time they get to the second or third month, and they've done this, and give them the benefit of the doubt, something happens. So then when you did it 20 times in a month, you do this 40, 50, 60 times, you're a different person. You're a different person. For example, one of the scary things one of the guys did was to tell his in-laws to stay out of their fucking life. He and his wife. Now, just imagine, you're going to tell your in-law to stay out of your fucking life. You're fucking up your daughter, my wife. That's a scary thing. Some of the things are, a daughter's going to tell parents, I can't be there every weekend to come and see you. And they're not sick and they're not dying or anything like that. And so, but you do something that scares you, because what we've done now is we've developed a methodology to make people feel comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's a quantum leap, pun intended.
Is that the essence of really what you do, is getting people to take more risk or to get out of their comfort zones, and then the wealth comes later?
It's not just out of their comfort zones. It's to change your reality. Okay, your reality is different than my reality. And, your followers' realities are all different. But it's to change your reality. And to make yourself accountable. That's not just getting outside your comfort zone, making yourself accountable. Okay? Not just accountable, not accountable to somebody else, accountable to you, me, yourself, because that's the ultimately that's the only person you should be accountable to, is yourself. And we grow up, in my judgment, wrongly, that that we don't hold ourselves accountable enough. We just don't. We've learned to come up with reasons why we can't do this, reasons why it's okay not to do this, reasons why you didn't follow up on time, reasons why I told the guy I'd get back to him by Wednesday. It's now Friday. Oh, it's the weekend. I'll now get back to him on Monday. And life has gotten simpler now with the internet and with email and the things where the communication is almost instant. You'd think it should be easier, but it's not. I use the analogy. 25, 30 years ago, you go in to buy a $100 million company. your due diligence would be 3, 4, 5 weeks, and it'd take you 3, 4, 5 weeks to close the deal. Okay, a month and a half, 6 to 8 weeks. With the internet, it should take less time because the information is instantaneous. It takes us twice as long to close a deal now. Twice as long. There's no reason for that. Things haven't gotten twice as complicated, but somebody has to put their name on the line. Somebody wants to push off the accountability. Somebody would rather have Brian sign off on it, so I go home early on a Thursday knowing you're going to come in early on a Monday and your signature will be on the document instead of mine because I don't want to be accountable. And so life has become more tedious. And I see it in the kids that come to the seminar, that the kids come in stressed. And back in the 90s, the kids didn't come in as stressed.
Do you think an entire generation hasn't been held accountable, that they've been told by their parents that everyone gets a blue ribbon and that everything is alike, on the social media, and that you see this lag, like you said?
Well, it's actually started before that.
Okay.
But the manifestation of that now is in the millennials of today. But the millennials tell me, we lack social skills. We can't interrelate because we've hidden behind a computer all our lives. And that's true, and I see it. But as I was telling you last night at dinner, my demographics have changed from 10 years ago, it was 35 to 55 people that followed me, looked at my site. Now it's 20 to 35. So we've switched down almost a generation in age because now the kids can see and gather information almost instantly. Nobody's making decisions any quicker, but they can see and they can gather this information. So, I've got a whole new generation of kids that follow me. I think I told you that this last seminar, 24 people, we had 6 people over 40, 6, and we had 18 people that were 29 or younger. And we had a 13, an 18, and a 15, 18, and 19-year-old. Now, the 15-year-old came with his dad, who was 53, who was the oldest in the seminar. And but the kids are appreciating what they don't like quicker now.
Do you think they're seeking out what they don't have, even if it's subconsciously? Because there's nobody in their life that's telling them like it is, that's straight.
I'm not so sure it's subconscious. A lot of the kids say that I'm the alpha father role model that they never had. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll know, maybe after they put dirt on me. But I do know that I don't believe the kids lack intelligence. I don't believe the kids lack anything other than leadership and guidance. And the kids are looking for it. Now, mine's a special kind. No question about that.
Yours is a special kind.
Yeah.
And I remember being in your castle in one of your trophy rooms with a lot of your animal heads on the wall. And I think I was next to your bear. It's a huge bear, and it's the bear that I think you ultimately stabbed.
Correct.
With your bare
Killed
hands.
with a knife, yeah.
And killed him with a knife. And I was looking at the bear. I just spent a week with you in the castle. Politically correctness is not even in your vocabulary or anything.
No.
You say what you want. You've got pictures on your wall of Hitler and Mussolini next to Jesus.
Correct.
And you got Rolls Royce and Ferraris out front. And I said, love him or hate him. And Dan, I love you and hate you simultaneously. Uh-huh. You have to admit, there's no one like Dan Peña. And you're an original. And you're something that I don't think people they don't find very often. And so when they see you, even these young kids, do they just see something they don't see anywhere else?
Well, that's part of it. But there's a sense of a reality that they have read about in books, but never experienced. They've never tasted it themselves. And, I am the real deal. Now, you know me a couple of years now. I'm the same on camera, off camera. I'm no different. And and I'm certainly, as you quite accurately put, I'm not politically correct. There's nothing about me that's politically correct. As my lovely daughter, we're here, she'd say, my daddy treats everybody the same, like shit. He doesn't discriminate. My daddy doesn't see whether you're black, red, blue, yellow, transgender. He doesn't see any of that. All he sees is another person, and if he doesn't like what you're saying or doing, he tells you. And if you should be stupid enough, this is my daughter talking, to ask him his opinion, he'll fucking give it to you. And it probably is not going to be something that you want to hear. And so the kids today have this need. It's like this thirst for guidance. And the kids do better in the year-long mentor program than the older kids. So the kids in their teens and 20s do better than the guys in their 40s and 50s. That's because the guys in their 40s and 50s got a lot of baggage.
Bad habits.
Bad habits, and it's tough to get rid of them. And motivation gets you started. Good habits keep you going. Most people just have piss poor habits. And, I've had these same habits for about 50 years now, okay? About 50 years. And I don't even think about it. I mean, it's just like brushing my teeth, taking a shower. I just do it. And one of the other interviews that I did with you, I said, when I do feel wimpish, which isn't too often, I just say, what's wrong with you, you cunt? Come on. And I just go out and do it. And I do that about my entire life. Everything about it. And I know that if I hadn't built up these habits 20, 30 years ago, at age 70, I certainly wouldn't be doing this, because I haven't had to work in a long time, since my middle 30s. So half my life, I've had the wherewithal to not have to work. And a lot of people, a lot of reelers, ask me, how do you get up in the morning? What motivates you to get up in the morning? One of my goals for this year was to go to the gym twice a day. Not once a day, twice a day. And of course, I don't go to a gym per se. I have gyms in my home. So I got to walk 50 feet or 50 yards or something. So it's not like I got to get in a car. But, if I didn't, if I had to get in a car, I'd still do it. And because, working out is part of my lifestyle. And I mean, good habits are hard to come by. But what's even harder to come by are people that have good habits that you can be around. That's even tougher.
Why is that?
Because you are, as I've said before, you are the average of the 5 people that you spent the most time with growing up. That's normally your dad, your mom, blah, blah, blah. But show me your friends now and I'll show you your future. And most of the guys, not just watching this program, but most of the guys and gals on the planet, let's go out and have a drink after work. You don't say, oh, well, he's a high performer. She's a pisshead. That's not how you pick the group, is it? A bunch of guys get in a car or they get in the lift, go downstairs, walk across the street to the pub, right? Right. Well, next, if you think about it, okay, well, I really don't mind having a drink with those 2 people over there. So why don't you initiate the request and say, why don't you and I, the 3 of us, go have a drink? Let's say that they're your supervisors. They're people that you look up to. They're more successful than you are, as opposed to the way that you do it now.
So people don't spend enough time selecting that peer group, even
Correct.
if they have the good habits. You're
Correct.
saying that's not enough.
Yeah, because they go to default.
Okay. What are some of your other good habits before we move on? You said, well, working out I know is one of them, but what are some of them, if you had to pick 3 or 4, that highlight you as a high performer?
I never give tacit approval.
What does that mean?
Tacit approval is you say some bullshit, okay? And I don't say anything, I'm quiet. Or I might even consciously or unconsciously shake my head like that. That's giving you tacit approval that I either agree or don't disagree enough to open my fucking mouth. So then now you go away to tell the other reelers, well, Dan agrees with that. Well, that's bullshit. So I go out of my way. And that's not one of the things that scares me, but I go out of my way to make sure that if I hear bullshit, I tell them it's bullshit.
That's a good habit in life because it just keeps you with the right people. It
Correct.
gets your message out loud and clear.
Correct. And
Okay.
especially in my position, because a lot of people follow me, it's even more important, yourself included. More people follow you than follow me, so I mean, it's even more important. But most of the people that are in what I call the personal development game do just the opposite, because they want to sell them something. They've got something to sell. And after they've sold them something, Brian, they've got something to upsell them. And then they got another upsell. and another upsell. I have no fucking upsells. I give everything away. The only place I make people put skin in the game, if you want my free mentoring program at the end of the seminar, you got to pay to get to the seminar. But as I've told you before, and I told, with the greatest respect, BBC earlier before I got here, I used to do the fucking seminars for free. Fucking free. And put 700, 800, 900 people in a goddamn hotel auditorium at the airport.
But it didn't work because they didn't have skin in the game.
It didn't work.
Right. And now what do they pay, roughly, to come
20
see you?
grand.
Okay. Dollars.
Sterling.
Sterling. Okay. And that's the way that works, because you get them with skin in the game. All right. No tacit approval. Good. Give me a couple more.
Or you already said working out. No tacit approval. Clean my Sam Walton's sundown rule. That means that before he left the office every day, until he died, till he got sick, everything on his desk, every message that came in, letter, etc. I don't think he was into emails. He answered. If nothing more, he had one of his assistants, same as I do, get back and say, Brian, Mr. Peña saw your message, and he'll get back to you by the day after tomorrow. At least he's saying he got the message, but he didn't have time to answer it right now. So I clear my desk, Sam Walton's sundown rule, every day. And some days, I normally go to sleep or between 11:30 and 12. But the days that you get emails or people that get emails from me at 1:30, 1:45, or 2, it's because I was implementing Sam Walton's sundown rule. So that's a great habit.
Sounds like over communicate. That's what you do. You don't give tacit approval. You get back to people quickly.
I get back to people quickly. In that line, I can't begin to tell you how many times I get through one of my 3 assistants, or personally, I couldn't believe how quickly he got back to me. Now, I once timed, this is a lot of years ago, one of the big guys that runs one of the big banks here in the city, 69 days to get back to me. God, Allah, Buddha, the President of the fucking United States shouldn't have to take 69 days to reply. And it was a yes or no. It wasn't some thing he had to think through. I jumped on that cocksucker. I remember Sally and I took him out to dinner. It took me another 4 or 5 months to get a dinner, and all I did was give him a bollocking. The whole fucking time. I busted his balls. He said he wanted to bring 2 or 3 people with him. Fine. Why do you want that? And he said, because it'll be a learning experience for them. He didn't really know how much of a learning experience. And I said, I'm going to be myself, so-and-so. So you can bring as many as you want. And I ripped him a new fucking rectum. And those people around him had never seen him respond or not respond to getting a bollocking. Does everybody understand bollocking? A ball busting.
Yeah.
And Sally just, my right leg was all black and blue because that was Sally kicking me under the table. And she says, Dan, and then I got up before dinner and made him pay. I got up, normally that's not how I do it, but Sally, we got to go. Well, the check's not here, so he'll take care of it, don't worry. He brought 3 of his stooges anyway.
All right, so over communicate, and other people should too.
Okay.
Here's a rough example, and this isn't anything proprietary, but this is a rough example of what one of your communications look like, which is all caps and reds. I don't know if anyone can see it here. And this is a typical message coming from you. And you're not a typist by any means. So
no.
This is index fingers.
Actually, I use 3 fingers. This one and these 2.
And you get these out in length, fast, to what, over 100 different mentees that you keep track of this year?
Yeah.
And
over
to everyone else, you've always been about over communicating.
Yeah. Because a lot of guys that are in the personal development business, which I'm not, but a lot of those guys, I don't know any of them that actually answer their own mail. And I answer my own mail. All my mail, I physically answer. Whether it's LinkedIn, I don't answer back too much on Facebook, but LinkedIn I do, and Twitter. I have messages, Peñisms that go out. I don't put them out, but I mean the responses on Twitter I do myself physically, and because one, people can tell whether it's me or somebody else you could answer for me and put it in red font, but they know it's not me. Because normally there's, I have some 4-letter word in there to spicing up my reply. And I think it's important. It's just like I see people whenever I'm in these cities, like I'm here in London right now. I saw 7 people today. I saw 8 yesterday, because I want to keep my thumb on the pulse of what's going on. And one of the things that really annoys, too strong a term, annoys my assistants, I post my travel schedule, as they say, weeks in advance on my site. People, if they want to see me, and it's for free, all they have to do is email and make an appointment. I get people 48 hours before I arrive in a city that want to make an appointment. Now, what kind of preparation is that? I mean, did it take them 7 weeks to get the balls to ask my assistant to schedule a meeting with me? I doubt it. But those people then go on a waiting list, and I may or may not have time to see them.
Is this one of your habits that you use for practicing success, as far as meeting with people, talking
Correct.
with people?
And kissing frogs is the real habit.
Right. Talk to me about the frogs, because
Okay.
one day in the castle when I was there, you showed up with the frog cufflinks and the frog. Oh, you got them on right now.
Yeah, I have several pair of frog cufflinks.
Frog ties.
I don't have frog tie today, but
What's with the frogs?
Life, in my judgment, a majority of success comes from overexposure, a numbers game, and kissing frogs reminds me that I'm never too rich or too important to continue to meet people, look for opportunities, and turn over rocks, looking at no matter how important I am or people think I am, because I haven't had to work in over 30 years. And so I kiss frogs, and in the castle and our various homes, I have literally hundreds of little stuffed frogs, ceramics, silver, gold, cufflinks, ties, because I want to never forget that I've got to continue to kiss frogs, and the 95% of my time is spent on kissing frogs. 95. Now, many of those frogs are my own mentees that I mentor for a year. And some of the mentees, I say with a chuckle, wish that I didn't kiss so many frogs and I didn't hold them accountable. But part of that kissing frogs process, when you're part of the mentor program, is I make you accountable. I remind you what you said you were going to do. And I'm not the kind of person that you say, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. You better do this, that, and the other. Otherwise, I'm going to bust your fucking balls. And you'll either do it or you're out of the mentor program. What the greatest thing about the mentor program is it's free. So I can toss any fucker I want out whenever I want. I wake up and I got a headache and I think about Brian. Oh, I wake up and I got a headache. I think about so-and-so. That's an exaggeration. But when it's free, and I could sell it, but I don't. Just like I don't sell the product. But it's kissing frogs is another habit. But the best habit, I think, I'm pretty sure, is I make myself accountable. And there's nobody I have to answer to. Nobody. Except the big man upstairs, okay? And some people say that my list is already too long to make up for. So I'm not sure I'm even accountable to him. But I make myself accountable. And I force myself to do things. Nobody, Sally says, do we have to, do that? I'll get in an extra meeting, or I'll ride with somebody to the airport or back because I didn't have time, and I felt I should have had time to see one more person. But I make myself very accountable. I also make myself accountable for success. I don't fail very often. I do fail.
You're pretty open about all the failures of
Yeah,
people.
I'm not ashamed of them.
Right.
That's what's made me who I am.
You said failure is just testing.
Correct. It's just testing. And I don't know, and I'm quick to pull the trigger two ways. I'm quick to pull the trigger and trying something, and I'm quick to pull the trigger and closing something. I know when the fucking dog don't hunt. Just turn the key.
What does that mean, turn the key?
Turn the key means close the fucking business down. Most of the people watching this thing should either not be in business, if they've got one, or close the fucker down if they got one. Because you got in business for all the wrong reasons, and you don't have the balls to close them down because of what other people are going to say. You have no idea how limitless it is when you're not afraid of what other people think or say. You have no idea. There's not two people watching this thing that even has a concept of what it is to act as if you have no limits to your abilities. Zero.
And that ties into the self-esteem.
Correct.
And that ties into what we see lacking in this world, and we see a lot of other signs of that.
And Donald Trump is the preeminent manifestation that, at least in America, they're up to here with it. They know that Donald doesn't say everything that's truthful. They don't give a shit because they know no fucking politician gets elected on truth. Our current president is a classic example. He is a perfect example, the manifestation that the world or the America is fed up with all the bullshit. And I believe that political correctness is a manifestation that the world has a lack of self-esteem.
So we had lack of self-esteem. We get an Obama. The fact that Trump is getting support, is that showing that we're shedding that off a little bit?
When he becomes president of the United States, it's a long shot. I said a year ago, if he's serious about being president, he will rock not only the United States of America, he will rock the world. 5 months ago, he says he's going to punch Putin in the mouth, if you recall. 6 days later, Putin says, I like that man. What does that tell you, Brian? What does that tell these people listening?
What?
Respect gets respect. Instead of all this political horse shit. If Donald Trump becomes president, he's going to rock the planet.
What does that mean, rock the planet?
He's going to change it.
You said to me last night, you don't care what anyone thinks of your opinion of them.
Correct.
You don't want their respect. And yet, by doing that, you get all of their respect.
I don't want anybody's love. Everybody loves me. I don't give a fuck if these p-heads watching this thing like me. You said they're either going to love you or hate you. I knew which one it would be. All my life, I've been this way. And all my life, people love me and respect me. If you're in a foxhole, who do you want in the fucking foxhole with you, Brian? You want some mealy-mouthed cunt, politically correct asshole? Or you want somebody that's going to rip their head off and shit down their neck? Trump's that kind of guy. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's that kind of guy.
And he's a sign that people want someone to give it
He's
to him
a
real.
sign.
Because that's what...
From Allah above.
Because whether he gets elected or not, the fact that he is in the polls
Absolutely.
tells us so much about ourselves.
Yes.
Because people hate themselves, right? Is that what the thing is in America? They walk around and is it just this lack of accountability, no self-esteem, and everyone is just mediocre, walking around with no...
And the U.S. has more self-esteem than all the other countries put together.
It should, or it does.
It does.
Right. And
It
yet it's got
does.
the biggest problem as well.
Yeah, that's there's two sides of the sword, you know, and he is showing the future. I mean, it's right there in front of us. And if Trump got to be president, Allah doesn't even know who's going to be the next prime minister. I mean, it's going to, he'll rock it. Now, whether he does or not, I don't know. But the other side of that coin is Bernie Sanders. God help us. He was a fucking communist 35 years ago. Now he's a socialist. He's in the Senate for 15, 20 years. And he's kicking Hillary's ass. What the fuck does that say? I mean, the U.S. is ready for change. They're so fed up. And the U.S. gets a cold or sneezes, the rest of the world gets a cold. You know,
Trump gets elected and we see a wave.
I'd love to see Bernie run against Trump. Because either way, the world's going to change. It'll change better for me if Trump's elected.
You said you've been like this all your life.
Correct.
I want to know, how does Dan Peña, get created? Where did you grow up? Who were the parents? Why you? I met your brother at your 70th birthday party.
Correct.
I really like him.
And what does he say when he was asked? I don't know if you asked him. They said, and he's a high performance guy. He's deputy assistant chief. He's the number 2 or 3 guy in the largest fire department in America, LA County Fire Department. Yeah. He went up the ranks.
I want him in the foxhole.
Oh yeah,
with us.
He's an alpha male as well.
Yeah.
But he said, if my father had beaten me more like he beat my older brother, me, I'd have even been more successful. If my dad had beaten me like he beat Danny, beaten him more, not less. And some of the people watching this fucking thing, their father had never slapped them. Some of the people watching this fucking thing have never been in a fist fight, let alone had the shit kicked out of them. Some of these people watching this fucking thing have never said shit if it was in their mouth. Some of the people watching this goddamn show, their future is going to be no better than their fucking past. Because even though you're opening up Pandora's box for all these opportunities for them, vis-a-vis the academy and and I'm not trying to make light of that, they're not going to take advantage of them. They're just not. And what I know at 70, and through Allah, and I'm not slagging off Muslims, but through Allah, God, Buddha, whoever, I knew this 40 years ago.
And part of that, they needed what? A stronger alpha male parent.
Correct.
They needed accountability as kids.
Correct.
And a beating.
Correct.
Okay.
All the above. And I say at the seminar, and you've heard me, the difference between how I was raised and how most people apparently were raised is I did have an alpha male dad, but all my dad's buddies were alpha males. They had just come back from World War II. Then they went into the Korean War. That was the thanks they got. They went from the World War II to the Korean War. And my dad was a cop, a strict disciplinarian. I rebelled against that, but my mother found a book by accident. There was a Reader's Digest summary of a book by named Dr. Spock. He wrote a book about child rearing. It came out in 1946. It's still in print. And the original, don't get the newer editions, the original, and it laid down the building blocks. If you've never been a parent, because there's a lot of babies being born right after the war, World War II, this is what you got to do, these things. And my mother followed it religiously. One of the things in the book, never tell your children no. Now that's tough. Now you're just about to have a child, and 5 years from now, I'm going to ask you, how many times you told a little kid no? It's tough to raise kids and not use the word no, but you've got to construct a negative response to the kid that he doesn't associate with the word no. And that's hard, okay?
So your mom didn't say no and your dad beat you?
My dad wasn't there, but when he was there, he did beat me.
Okay.
But my mother never told me no. She'd say, well, let's try this. Let's try that. So I never heard the word no. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it goes to how and it talks about everything from breastfeeding to this to that, the first time that the kid gets a cold. So she followed this little guideline. But what the book was meant when it was written about, what the main subject matter was building self-esteem. And self-esteem is built in the first 7 or 8 years of a child's life. Okay? If you don't have self-esteem at 7 or 8, you're not going to have it, or it's going to be diminished. And the book, and just like the Catholic Church, I was raised a Catholic. The church says, you give me your child for the first 7 or 8 years, and I'll own them. And they do. And the Catholic Church doesn't operate much differently today. But I had great self-esteem. And I catapulted that. I was a mediocre athlete. I didn't do anything else well. My father had no goals for me other than keep me alive to the age of reason. Been arrested 5 times. Today I saw one of the kids I saw today, 5.5 years in prison here in Britain. 5.5 years. He got out of prison, went back to school, graduated a degree in accounting, and he's 29 years old, and now he's turned his life around. Well, my dad wasn't so sure that me going to prison, I would turn my life around. So, and because I did a lot of crazy things, arrested 5 times. My dad's a big-time policeman, with world recognition. Here I'm getting carted off to jail 5 times. And so, but he stressed discipline. Like I told the people earlier today that I talked to, my dad only had one goal for me in life. It wasn't anything other than to keep me alive till I reached the age of reason. And then when I started getting a lot of awards in my 30s, and he's interviewed, he goes up and he tells the interviewing people that interviewed him, Mr. Peña, you should be real proud of your son. I'm sure you are. You want to tell us about it? He looks straight in the camera and he says, my son's not successful because of me. My son's successful in spite of me.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonrealacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media login and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonrealacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.
5 times. And so, but he